Welcome to the Peak Performance and Peak Satisfaction podcast with Master Executive Coach Sherry Gregoff. Sherry helps business people perform better, get rewarded handsomely, and actually enjoy their work. After having her own career turnaround, she now helps other high-powered business professionals experience the same. Join the movement to work differently.
Welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you here. In business, the one constant is change. Sometimes, though, that change can feel like a blocker to our success. In today's episode, I share with you exactly how to set yourself up to thrive in an organization with rampant reorganization. Before we jump in, I want to shout out one of my clients who had a win in this area. Here's the quote from him. I was focused on how hard it would be to succeed in this environment. Sherry showed me that by being the calm in the storm, a constant amidst turnover and shifting priorities, who does their best and delivers consistently, I will be positioned to stand out. This client finds himself in the heart of the highest growth area of our time at a flagship brand. One might say at the epicenter of a storm of change. High demand, high expectations, and high pressure abounds. Personal reputations are on the line, and the churn is real in high-stakes roles. With a complex web of stakeholders of varying levels of credibility and tenure, and a lack of alignment on prioritization, the value of work well underway was being questioned. Through coaching, we found the positive in being in a hyper-growth area. We noted that people come and go, but he could remain centered on his and his team's reputation, performance, relationships, and value contribution. This allowed him to get more creative than ever in how to convey the value of his team's work to each set of key stakeholders, up and down the hierarchy, horizontally and diagonally too. This would invite real-time feedback and create more advocates for his team throughout his evolving network. His plan will help his organization through the change. In fact, the latest changes disrupted the ecosystem such that he has this window to drive positive change himself. Upon reflection, this shakeup might be just what the business needed. What felt like a crisis is now a clear opportunity. Similar victories are shared by all of my clients, and I have experienced it too in my own career turnaround. So let's hop to today's podcast content and get you on your way to experiencing this also. Some clients are in businesses that are in hyper-growth phases such that the challenge that they face is to keep up with demand, to stay out of the fray that can be a revolving door if you don't cut it against sky-high expectations. I find that in that situation, we're usually yearning for a little normalcy, a leveling out, a chance to catch our breath. Some clients are in mature businesses looking to evolve and stay relevant, cutting costs, closing down product lines. Frankly, it can be a clinging to what was. In this situation, we often dream about being in growth mode once again, creating and building something new. You can see that it's a grass is always greener type of thing, isn't it? What I tell people is to enjoy the ride, to learn from every experience, to remember that there are always challenges everywhere. The question is whether the work has enough benefit to you to make the challenges worth it. And no matter the phase a business is in within its life cycle, the constant is this. The business is changing. In fact, I can't remember a time when a client was in a steady, sleepy organization. Even in decline, the cost cutting is generally aggressive, and life feels anything but sleepy. The fact is that companies are like living organisms. The environment around us is always changing. The business is changing and growing from the inside out. And yet, we often find ourselves in the middle of this dynamic, feeling like something went wrong. It can begin to feel disorienting. We tell ourselves, this should not be happening. I liked it the way it was before. It's such a human nature thing that we do, yearning for simpler and better times. The fact is, we generally have rose-colored glasses on the past. Our memories can be selective. Sometimes that selective memory is helpful, like for mothers after childbirth. The moms, you know exactly what I mean. But in business, it just keeps your head out of the game, wishing things were not what they are. The more we resist change, the more difficult our careers will be. So if you find yourself taking that trip down memory lane and wishing everything was the way it used to be before because then it made sense to you, then it was simpler, it was more enjoyable, get really honest with yourself. What were the challenges of the day back then? We know there were some. So if we can put that past in perspective, it will help us face the here and now and let go of some of that resistance. We talk a lot in this podcast about using your voice, speaking up for what you believe is right. When you feel the pull to oppose change, ask yourself this question. Is there an opportunity to influence how this change happens in a positive way? If so, take it. Speak up, suggesting the most constructive way forward. That was a bit of a trick question because, surprise, you can always positively influence the situation, even if it's just actively managing how you receive the change. Resistance, it's exhausting. It's fighting a losing battle. It's fighting with reality. The main way that we shift from resistance to actively shaping the future is to be that calm in the storm, rooted and grounded. You may say, Sherry, I'm in the middle of a reorganization. It's like a tornado of change happening around me. How in the world do I get grounded? And what is there to get rooted in? My answer? It's you, your identity, your capability, your track record of delivering value in different and changing environments. When you can remember who you are and what you bring to the table, even in the midst of significant change, you will end up in a better place than when this change started. The worst outcomes happen when we doubt ourselves and rule out the possibility of thriving in a changing environment. We may decide the organization, and by extension we, are doomed. Maybe we see it as a 50-50 chance of things getting better or worse, like rolling a die. I coach my clients to recognize that they are the key variable in this equation. Their ability to adjust, to be resourceful, resilient, it stacks the odds in their favor. It's like leaning on the scale. We have a phrase we often share with each other: the house always wins. We can always find a way, even to take a dismal situation and make it work in their favor. It's what we do, our routine. So our first step today is getting your mind right amidst this reorganization, remembering who you are and that you can take any situation and make it work in your favor. Now, if believing that fully feels like a long shot to you, schedule your 1 hour with me now at the link in the show notes, and let's anchor in that belief together. The belief in your own level of resilience, resourcefulness, adaptability, and pure capability is the top ingredient for ensuring peak performance and peak satisfaction in your career, no matter the level of change surrounding you. Next, let's talk action. So, another big reorg is coming. Here's what you can do instead of watching the clock and waiting for water to boil to see what the outcome is for you. Maybe you just learned the changes up ahead and you didn't see them coming at all. Most people will resort to panic and worry. They will become distracted and fill their days with feeding the rumor mill and catastrophizing, but not you. I remember being in the middle of an acquisition. I sat in an office cubicle at the time with really high walls. Those were the days, am I right? Anyway, I would have person after person of the company being acquired, of which I was a part, stop in and start bad-mouthing the acquirer. Little did they know that next to me sat the head of the department within the acquiring company. It was a humble desk, and he sat there quietly. As much as I tried to redirect people showing up and talking out their emotions about the acquisition and hint at who was sitting next door, person after person came in and got started on the wrong foot with a critical new leader for all of us. It's a helpful reminder. When change is happening and emotions are high, imagine leadership sitting in the desk next door. Like when we tell our kids that what they send in text or on social media could land on the front page of the newspaper, then they promptly ask me, like, you mean a printed newspaper, Mom? Anyway, they and you get my drift. Watch the toxic talk that will only alienate you from your changing colleagues and poison your productivity. Instead, when opportunities to connect with others comes up, use them to build relationships, speak truth and optimism, encourage others, brainstorm on new ways to help each other, and to come up with new ideas for change that you have. Whenever the conversation starts to turn to speculation, shift the focus back to the facts and the business. My favorite refrain for when people are down spiraling in drama at work is, I hear you. So what will you do about it next? Or what can we do about it next? It helps upshift from complaining and feeling like a victim amidst changes to finding the opportunity. It helps steer your colleague from dismay and disarray to empowered and puts them on the spot to come up with solutions and next steps. It's a great little hack when you find yourself with colleagues who really like to point out problems like it's their job. All of us can hold each other accountable to suggest solutions. It makes for a far more constructive and enjoyable environment. It keeps everyone challenging themselves and stretching to really add value rather than just observing from the peanut gallery, the cheap seats. It's the difference between acting like an employee and acting like an owner. It's a lot more fun, too. Complaining and feeling stuck, it's for the birds. Nobody wants to be there. So when you catch yourself there, use this as a protocol to quickly shift to more useful ground. Another action to take, apart from how you connect with colleagues, is to double down on adding value. During reorganizations, productivity can tank. So if you are able to keep the potential distraction at bay and keep contributing in a meaningful way, you will quickly distinguish yourself. Others will take notice. When many are letting their imaginations run away with themselves or getting bogged down in worry, if you can focus on the task and excelling in the work you deliver, you will only increase your chances of improving your position within the company. Business is fascinating because it's the people who make it run. Sometimes we get so caught up in the people, interactions, org charts, power plays, politics, that we forget why we're all here, Focusing our energy on the work that moves the needle is why we're there in the first place. So when change is rampant, the people whose value add is crystal clear and growing will fare the best. We know that to be successful in business, we need to do more than keep our head down and produce, yes. But in times of rampant reorganization, make sure that you're spending solid time doing exactly this. For our next action, let's start with a question that I fielded recently. It was from a business person in the throes of reorganization, and here came the question of how in the world to effectively lead a team through significant change when you, as the leader, yourself, feel unsure. It's a great question and one that all leaders have faced. Uncertainty can bring anxiety. During this change, team members are looking for solid ground, confidence, and security. As team members come to you looking for all the answers, but really there's more unknowns than knowns, here's what you do. Encourage them to keep showing up their best, focusing on the work, and letting the changes take shape. Assure them that you will communicate thoroughly once the decisions are made. Express confidence in them to keep adding value to land in a place that's a good fit once the changes take place. Normalize their discomfort by sharing that you too are facing uncertainty and that this is par for the course in working in business and in large organizations. We reinvent ourselves. We test out different org structures to find what is most optimal. We flex and change. We learn what works and what doesn't, and then we change again. This isn't cause for alarm. This is expected. And it's how it works. As individuals, our best approach is one of calm confidence. Remind them of the value they bring and that worry does nothing but harm their work and well-being. I find myself sharing about different waves of change that I would see entire offices scared of. This huge what if that would just be hanging over the heads of everyone walking through the office. Standing at the coffee machine, sitting at their desks, worried about and talking about this big what if and the case that it could come to pass, only to find many years later that big potential change never was raised and never occurred. What a colossal waste of time and a stressor that didn't help anyone for years. It didn't prepare them better if it were to happen. It was pure torment. And by the way, as you're speaking to your team member as the leader, take your own advice as you're hearing this from me and as you're relaying it to your team. Your employees will forget the exact words you said to them in times of significant change, but they will remember if you made them feel more stable or more uneasy. If you can stay grounded in reality yourself, that will be the factor that most puts your team members at ease. Having the confidence to handle the curveballs that may come. The next action is to find that certainty that everyone is seeking, including you, within. You know the skills you have. You know the experience you have. The challenges that you have overcome all along your career journey. You can recall the different environments, different changes, and adversity that you have withstood. You can appreciate the success and opportunities that you have had to date. Pointing your brain towards all these things that you know about yourself, that you know to your core, it can help provide ballast in times of changing external circumstances. So take a break from focusing on all the uncertainty, all the things you don't know, all the anxiety, and actually put pen to paper on all the evidence you do have, all the things you do know, that no matter what happens with these changes to the business, you will be fine. From there, you'll be better positioned to assess the worst case scenario. Sometimes when change-driven anxiety is so high, it's because our brain doesn't even want to face, because it's deathly afraid of some worst case scenario. And instead of fearing it and avoiding even contemplating it, I'm going to ask you to evaluate it methodically. What is the worst case scenario that you are scared of? If you lost your job, if you had to report to someone who didn't inspire you, if your scope of role changed, if you were asked to move to a different location, anything you can dream up, write it down. And then circle back over and decide, if that happened, how would you handle it? What would help the situation? How would it be okay? Catastrophic thinking is a bomb, and it is best disarmed by facing the worst case scenario and finding out how you would persevere through it. It takes all the fear out of it and makes it a logical problem to be solved. It's a useful exercise that is sure to lessen the power that fear has over you. And while we're here, ask yourself these questions. Do you need your manager to be the same to thrive? No. I have had some beloved managers. I'm talking leaders to make the record books. I keep in touch with them and have for decades, and my affection for them hasn't dwindled in the slightest. That being said, some of my major career growth, milestones, and advancement happened when I wasn't under their tutelage. A star manager can lead by example for you, but then it's your turn to be the star manager, even without the support of an inspiring mentor yourself. I have coached clients through the shell shock of losing the reporting line to an amazing business leader, and every single time they made more of a name for themselves and grew into that leader's shoes. It may not feel as comfortable or cozy, but it's the natural next growth step. Here's another question. Do you need this exact role and scope to thrive? No. Sometimes we cling so tightly to a role or a scope or a title that we love. We resist change because right now seems so good. We don't want to upset the apple cart. This is a version of playing it small, of fearing the unknown. It keeps us stuck and stagnant. Any role on paper is just a starting point. As business professionals, we can step outside the box and shape our own roles just the way we want, without top-down direction, without it being in the job description. So we can loosen up on role definition and scope because both are fluid. We make the role, not vice versa, and we need to trust ourselves to do that, even as our role is changing. Notice that in both of these questions, our default response is to believe that if our environment is disturbed, it will mean disaster. You may have heard me say this before, but the Japanese character for crisis can be broken down into dangerous and opportunity. When we are in the middle of rampant reorganization, it can feel like a crisis. It can feel dangerous, but only to the part of us that is yearning for safety, security, and functioning on autopilot. You know better now. Significant change presents opportunity. Embrace it and let your talent and your demeanor shine in these instances. For everything around us that changes that's outside of our control, we always have two choices. Number one, we can ruminate in whether we wanted that change to happen or not, whether it might turn out good or bad for us. Or number two, we can find out how to make the change work in our favor by identifying what value we can extract from this change happening around us. It's the two choices that we have when facing change at work and in our personal lives too. To shift from danger to opportunity, the first key is calming your nervous system. Spot yourself in fight, flight, or freeze, and realize that it's happening and why it's happening. Yes, these external circumstances, this change is occurring around us, maybe like a massive reorganization underfoot at work, but it's not the circumstances changing that's the problem. It's our thoughts about the change and what we're making it mean. For example, without my current scope and boss, who's a tremendous advocate of mine, I'll be sure to be discovered as an imposter and quickly fired. Whoa, that was quite a leap from reorganization happening to me getting fired. It makes us want to, A, fight the people driving the change and anyone around us who we perceive as starting to have an upper hand in a zero-sum game. Eek. Yeah, but this is what it's like though. It can get very dog-eat-dog. Little mafioso moves in the office. It's toxic. It's no fun. Many people jump ship just because of these behaviors, and that's B, flight. This is too hard, too uncomfortable. I'm not going to stick around and see what happens. I'm out. Rage applying and hop to another, or any job that is just not this one. Or quietly disappear from meetings and spend more time working remotely to avoid the situation. Or C, freeze. We can't contribute and we can't leave. It's like a deer in headlights. We're shocked. Maybe we're gossiping while frozen, but still very much not contributing to and unable to process this change. When you sense any of these coming up, do the exercises in this podcast to calm your nervous system. This takes you from that caveman survival brain of instinctual thinking and reacting to higher level thinking and processing, opening up creative problem solving, rational thought, and innovation. When you hear this described, it makes perfect sense, right? But when you're in that reorg, when you're in fight, flight, or freeze, this can feel very far away and hard to access. That's why I take my clients through it step by step when they're in the crisis and it feels very full on. I wrote a book about this method, and it's a quick read or listen on Amazon, Kindle, or Audible, which you can check out in the show notes. But if you are tired of just hearing about it and you want to actually experience it firsthand in your current work situation, schedule time with me now for your career strategy session, and I'll take you through it. All right, friends, happy reorging. 'Tis the season. Hang in there through all the awkward town halls, maybe some swag propaganda, wordsmithed announcements, and manicured new org charts. Maybe get a laugh out of it along the way. It's reorganizing and changing. In business, it's what we do. So let's take it in stride and keep mastering how to come out on top when this undoubtedly happens again soon. Until next time.
Looking for support in applying the principles and strategies in today's episode? Sherry coaches clients one-on-one as their trusted confidant and advisor, helping each client create the work and life they had only dreamed of. To schedule your complimentary career strategy session, go to sherrygregoff.com/apply to book time with her today. It's one simple step that can change everything.